go to manifest.json file now. OK, because this is the file where we have to do all the routing configuration. OK, so this is one of the important file for our routing and navigation purpose. OK, and this is the place where we have to do or we have to write our or we have to maintain configuration for routing. So let's scroll down here and there under the SAPUI5 namespace. OK, under SAP.UI5 namespace, when we scroll down, we have a couple of options or couple of properties for dependencies, for content density, models, then again resources, and at the last you can see we have routing, right? So at the last we have a routing here. So this is what we have to do in our case, the configuration that we have to maintain in our case. OK, so under this routing, you can see we have a 3 tabs under this. We have a 3 subcategories under this. One is config, second is routes, and third is targets, right? So we have a 3 subcategories under this routing: config, route, and targets. OK, so let's understand each and every subcategory individually in detail. So first, let's start with the config. What is config? So config means it is a global configuration and it is a one-time activity that we always have to do under this config properties. OK, so one time means only once. Once you write, next time you don't have to change anything within this config. OK, but apart from the config, we have routes and we have targets. So under the routes and targets, yes, every time you add a new view file, so we have to make some changes within this routes and targets. OK, so this maximum time or most of the time, the changes that we will do will be only done on this routes and targets. OK, but apart from that, this config, it is like a global configuration and which is only done. It's only one time activity for our configuration. So what we maintain inside this config now? So inside the config, first of all, we have a router class. OK, so first property is router class. So router class means which class we have to use for routing, like which API we have to use for routing. So you can see they are using sap.m.routing.router. So this is the library which we have to use to perform the routing and navigation. OK, so this is the mobile specific library, because nowadays most of the applications are built for mainly for the mobiles or smartphones or tablets. So this router class will for sure it will help you. It will provide more features because this library is specifically designed for the mobile purpose. OK, so this library it already extends. Let me show you the router library once in SDK. Go to API reference and you can search for router. OK, so when you search for router, this is what the router library we have, sap.m.routing.router. OK, so already there is a specification for this, like it is a mobile router. OK, so basically this will help you for transition, like when you're using this sap.m.routing.router library. In case of mobile, you can see some animation, OK, some different animations you can see. And that can help you to understand whether you are going to back screen or next screen. OK, that can help you for sure. So for that, this library is specifically designed. But when you look at this library, it already extends from sap.ui.core.routing.router. So instead of this library, I can also use this one, but we don't have to use, right? Because already this library is extending most of the features from this core router. So we don't have to worry. So if I'm using sap.m, so indirectly all the features from this routing will be inherited by this router API, right? So this mobile router API, it will inherit all the features from this core routing.router API. OK, so that's why this is the library that we have to use in the router class. Second, we have view type. So guys, all these are standard properties. So like in WebID full stack also, these properties are already added. So we don't have to do. But If you're practicing on WebID personal edition, so in WebID personal edition, this piece of code, like routing, everything, like this entire code we have to add explicitly because this code is not getting generated if you're using WebID personal edition for practicing purpose. Okay. So in that we used to add each and every line of code explicitly because that code is not by default added. We need to add that. Okay, so after this router class, we have view type. So what is the purpose of view type? Like on which view files we need to work on? Like most of the view files are XML only because that is what SAP is recommending us. Okay, so to follow the best practice, to follow the MVC architectural design pattern, so SAP recommends that we have to always go with view of type XML. So that's why in any UI5 application, if you go, 100% XML view files are only used, not HTML or not any other files. Because XML can help you to follow the rules and guidelines for to follow the architectural design pattern. Like using XML, you can follow architectural design pattern of MVC. So that's why the view type on which we are working is XML. After that async, you can keep this, you let it go. We can go with the next one, view path. So view path means where all view files are located. So all view files are located under the view folder. So that is what the path they have provided. OK, so under the view folder, we have all the view files. Then we have a control aggregation. So what is control aggregation? What is control ID? So these two properties are very important. Rest like clear control aggregation and all you can ignore. That's not important. But let me explain this control aggregation and control ID now. So first we'll start with control ID and then I'll explain control aggregation. OK, so what is this control ID and why they have declared app? So why they have declared app under the control ID? So let's go to app.view.xml file now. Now, can you see one ID here, app? Can you see this ID equal to app? So this app, it is an ID of app control. Now this ID we have to provide. This is something new. Yeah. OK, so you can see this app is nothing but this is the control. And for this control, we have an ID called app. So this ID only we have to specify under this control ID. Now you got it. OK. So this ID only we have to specify for this app control. So this ID and this control ID both should match and that are purely case sensitive. OK, guys, any questions here? So far, whatever I have explained, uh, is it clear or you need any explanation for that? Have you understood or not? Let me know, guys.
Yes. If
Yeah. OK, so once you provide this control ID, so both control ID should match. So if I'm providing any other ID, like apart from app, if I say like it's a container app, something like this. So same ID I have to copy and I have to provide in this control ID. OK, that is important. So this is about the control ID. So what about the control aggregation now? So which is the control now? In our case, control is app, right? So what is the aggregation for app control? Let me go to app now here. Let's search for app. So there is a control called app. And now what is the aggregation for that app control? You can see pages, right? So pages is the default aggregation for app control. Now same, instead of defining this aggregation like this, OK, instead of defining aggregation like this, you can directly specify that aggregation inside the control aggregation. OK, so just they have added a control aggregation colon pages. That's it. So in this case, we don't have to add anything here. So this is how the structure we have to keep for app.view.xml file. OK, so now what is happening here? So we have an app control here. Now you can see like we have a control aggregation and control ID now. That's it. So this is what we have for the config section. Okay. So async means like I'll tell you, basically this async is used for loading the view files or controller files asynchronously. Means it will not wait for any other libraries. Parallelly, this files will be loaded. So for that, they have added async as a true. So whichever libraries or whichever view files are getting loaded, that will be loaded asynchronously. OK, so that's what they have provided that property. So let's scroll down now. So after the config, we have a routes. We have a routes and then we have a targets. So let's start with the routes. So routes means what I said earlier, like if you're creating any view file, so for that we have to define a route. OK, so as of now, only two view files are there, right? But only one route I can see here. Why? Because see app.view.xml file is already reserved and it will always act as a root view. So for that route is not required. OK, so for app.view.xml file route is not required. But for first view.view.xml file a route is required. Why we need first view route for the first view? Because let's say within your application, if we have like more than 2 or 3 view files, and now based on the requirement, like based on the process, like you are in the second or third view file, and now again you have to like we have to take user to first screen, that is on the first view file. Then in that case we need a route. Okay, because this route will tell us like where we have to navigate. Okay, so for every view file, this routes we have to define. So if I'm creating one more view file, then I have to define a route for that. Okay, guys, have you got it? So we have to define a route for that. Okay, so let's create a new view file and a new controller file. So before we start, let me complete this routes and targets. At least once you get this, what is the name, pattern, target, and what is the target and all, so it would be more clear. So within this route, so let's start with the first route which they have defined. So first there is one property called name. Okay, so you can give any name to your route. So for example, they have provided route first name. So like they are following some standard route first name. So this is the name for your route. OK, and using this name value only you can do the navigation. So if I'm in the second view and if I want to come back to the first view, so the value that I have provided for this name property. So this value only I will be using for navigation purpose. OK, so this value we have to always this value will be identified whenever you want to work with the navigation. So if you want to come back to the first view, so we will be using this name value. OK, so name value we have to use in that case. So after that, second property we have is pattern. So pattern means whichever. OK, so pattern you can give anything. As of now, they have made this as an optional parameter. So we'll explain. OK, I will explain what is optional parameter, what is a mandatory parameter, and apart from that, how to pass a data with this parameter. OK, as a optional or as a mandatory, everything we'll see. OK, so let me remove this as a pattern, and instead of that, I'll keep it as a blank. OK, so I'll keep it as a blank for the pattern, and next I'll explain what is a pattern now. So let me run this project first. So this is very important, guys. So please pay your attention. OK, so guys, in this screen, when I run this screen, so which view file it is displaying? First view, right? It is displaying initially first view. Why it is not displaying this app.view.xml? It should display app, right? But instead of that, it is displaying first view content. So how this is happening? This is happening because of this app control. So this app is nothing but it is a container. It is a parent container, and inside this parent container, all view files, apart from that, the view files which I'm adding or view files which I'm creating. So all these view files will be placed inside this app container. Okay, so this app will act as a parent or it will act as a main container. And under this app control, we will be adding rest all controls like in first view. When we open a first view, you can see we have a page. So, and inside the app, we already know it has a control aggregation called pages. So inside the app, we have aggregation of pages. Now inside the aggregation of pages, you can add a page control. So when you open this app, so initially what will happen first, your app control will be created. And now inside that a pages aggregation will be created. And now inside the pages aggregation, this page control will be placed under that page aggregation. Is it clear, guys? Is it clear? How is the process? First, this app control will be created. And now inside this app control, we already know it supports the default aggregation as the pages. Okay, now inside this pages aggregation, this page content will be placed. This page control will be placed inside this pages aggregation. Okay, so same like simple form. So inside the simple form, we have a content, and inside the content, we basically add label and input fields. Okay, so similarly, in case of this routing also, first app control will be created, and now inside that pages aggregation would be there. And now inside the pages, we have the page control. Okay, so likewise, all the pages will be placed. So it's not that it will like each and every page will be displayed, not like that. So like at a time, only one page will be placed. Okay, let me show you like 0 to n. Okay, so which type of control you can add? So it's not about only page control. Like you can also add other page controls. Like basically you can also use VBox or Edgebox if you want to use in this case. VBox, Edgebox, vertical layout, horizontal layout. Even you can use split tab. So the controls which are extending, from this app control. Okay, the controls which are extending from this core control. So all that controls or all those controls you can use or you can add it inside this page control. Okay. Guys, any questions here so far? At least you got it why they are using app, because this app will act as a parent container for all other page controls. So this will remain fixed. Only the content within this app will be updated based on the navigation. So initially, which content it will be placed, which content it will show, it will basically show the content of first view. But let's say if I'm going to the second view, now instead of showing the first view content, it will show second view content. Okay, because this is fixed, this is static. Only the content within this app is dynamic, and that will be updated on runtime. Okay, so based on this, what will happen? So we don't have to reload the entire page for that. Okay, page won't be loaded or won't be reloaded entirely. Only the content that you see within the app, it will be updated. Okay, only the content within the app, it will be updated. Okay, so I can just inspect and I can just show you the content. Okay, how this HTML tags are getting created under that. Okay, so first, yeah. So can you see? First, we have this app control. Okay, so this is our app control first. Now inside the app control, you can see like we have a container of app, right? So this is the container of app. Now inside that, you can see we have a first view. Okay, so this view file is created now, right? And now inside this view file, we basically have the header of view. and which has the content, everything and body, and that's it. So this is how the structure would be created in HTML DOM. Okay, so this is the document object model for that app. Okay, first app, after that app container is there, and inside that we have a view file. That view file will be placed inside that. Okay, and now inside that again we have a page, and for page we have header, and again like basically after the header we also have a content, but as of now we didn't added any content, so it's purely blank. Okay, so let's understand now the pattern. So at least you got it. What is name? So name is just we are providing a name for that route. Second, we have a pattern. So by default, I'm keeping a pattern as a blank for the first view, because every time I load the app, I want to see the first view. So whenever you want to see first view at the start, so make sure that you keep a pattern for that route as a empty. Okay, so this is how we have to keep a pattern, because when it sees the pattern as a blank, so by default it will display first view. Okay, so I'll show you, like if I create one more view file, so if I make a pattern a blank for that view file, so instead of displaying first view, it will display second view. So we'll see that. Okay, so after that we have a target. So one thing to remember, so this pattern value, whatever value you provide in this pattern, this value will always come, or it will be always displayed in this URL. Okay, so pattern value will always displayed in the URL. Name value is only used for internal purpose. Like in a controller, you can use this name value, but this pattern value will always it will always reflect in the URL. After that, we have a target. So last we have the target. So they have provided one name as a target first view. So you can give any name to this target, but just follow the standard like target first view so that any developer can easily understand. So under the target first view, so again this target, first we have to define a target, and under that this target first view means the name that we have here, the value. Same value we have to define, and this we have to define as an object. And within this object, you can see a couple of properties, like first view type. So view type, of course, that view type will be XML. Second, the transition. So this transition means it is an animation. Like you can see a flip or you can see a slide. So this is like a different animations you can add using this transition property. Okay. By default, it is kept as a slide. After that, clear control aggregation, keep it always as a false. And then we have a view ID and view name. So view ID, you can give any name, but view name is very important. So this view name is nothing but this is the actual name of that view file. Okay, because target is responsible for loading. Okay, target is responsible for loading that view file in the browser. Okay, not the route. Route, it just help you to identify that route, or first of all that view file. But the main purpose of target is the target is responsible for loading that associated view file on the screen. Okay, or inside the browser, because target is only responsible for doing that, not route. Route is just that we basically provide a name for the navigation. Like if I want to go from one view to other view file, I basically use route. But once the route that route or that value is getting matched, that associated view file will be loaded in the browser based on this targets. Okay, so target is responsible for loading that view file on the browser. Guys, any questions here?
Yeah,
So can
this can be
Mhm.
dynamic, right? This target, we can
Yes, yes, yes.
dynamically face
Yeah,
the view
means
also.
same like
Means
the
suppose there are
routes.
five view, there are
Yeah.
five view, and we want to pass likely depend on the click and the
Hello.
target properties, or it will be
No, no, no.
different.
Actually, your voice I missed. Can you repeat that once?
Okay, see, this is a target, and we are mentioning the ID, not ID. Basically, we are mentioning the view name, right?
Right.
Okay, so can we just put another means dynamic view in this view name means dynamically it get populated and call the view whatever the view are there.
No, no, no. This we have to do manually only. Okay. If
Okay.
if if we have five
Okay.
view files, then five targets we have to specify inside this targets.
Then why we are using this like only container just to show like a container only container we will refresh not for all pages refresh means why we are creating this means we all already can achieve this by like a page or like that only right so
We
why we are
can.
creating this
Why we are creating? Because see, now let's say you're telling me like we can directly create a 5 page controls in this, right?
right
Like
right
we can directly create because it already supports the pages aggregation, and within that pages you can add as many as pages possible. But the thing is
right
that what about the logic? What about the modularity? Can you modularize your code using that?
okay means segregated okay
Yes. So you can easily like easily categorize your code. You can maintain all that code in a different view file because every view file has its own purpose, right? So that's why like based on the requirement, if I because see otherwise the navigation won't be performed, right? If you're not
yeah
going to create view files, if you're going with only single view file, how navigation can be done? Every time, see, for to achieve that, you have to write so many logic for that. You need to add so many validations. Then you can do that. But for sure, it will increase more complexity. And it will at some point, it will be very hard